We are live. I'm so excited for this webinar. And if you're watching live, awesome. If you're watching this later, awesome. I have a feeling that this is going to be used quite a lot in the future, and one that you might need to rewatch and watch again, or you might even share this with a friend or another mama that after you watch it will know how just beneficial it will be. And this is one of my favorite topics to talk about is pregnancy. It is postpartum. It is talking about babies and kids. And I want to first share with you, like, first of all, if you're on and want to say hey. You can put your name in the comments, or like say, you actually don't have to put your name in the comments. It will show up on there, but say hi. We're going to be a little bit interactive here, especially those of you that have babies and have had babies. I think that one of the best things about talking about this is developing community. It's healing and knowing that you're not alone. So when we talk about a few things and you want to share some of your thoughts in here, you absolutely can. It's my way is not the only way. And there's so many different things that mamas have done in the past. And so if you're on here or watching it in the future and want to share some things, absolutely, please do. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you've done in the past, or your plans for the future. And listen, I am touching the surface of what it means to thrive in your fourth trimester, because there are courses that you can buy that are 12 courses long, 20 courses long, like hours of information that you can read about when it comes to supporting yourself postpartum. So I'm touching the surface of what this means. And when I'm going through this, I'm like, know that there's more to come. I don't know when exactly they will be, but just know there will be absolutely more information to come. Or if you have any questions, please reach out. Like, I am happy to walk through and go in more depth of what it means to thrive in your fourth trimester. Now, I want to get on a little bit of a soapbox for a second, just to help you understand why I'm doing this and where my passion comes from, and why I don't even have kids yet. And so why I would want to spend it like this time to go through it. And so right now, the CDC estimates that nearly 40% of American mothers with postpartum depression never get the proper care. So talking about this, like thriving in the fourth trimester, in America, the way that you are treated postpartum, it blows my mind. And I read this book called The Fourth Trimester, and it changed my entire view of what it looks like postpartum for our moms. And there is a documentary, it's called Call the Midwives. And if you didn't know this, the majority of mid-20th century English mothers, they gave birth at home with midwives. And after the delivery, midwives would continue to make house calls. They would check on both the baby and the mom. And unfortunately, like, how awesome would that be? Like, if that's what happened right now. But what's happened is that model of care has completely shifted. Your traditional healthcare professional is not making any house calls to you, despite the fact it's called ACOG. It's the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. In May of 2018, they had a meeting, and they said that postpartum women should be in touch with their OBGYN during the first 3 postpartum weeks. They should discuss infant care, sleep needs, and basic care with their OBGYN. They should schedule a comprehensive postpartum assessment between 6 to 12 weeks postpartum that focuses on all needs of mama: physical needs, social needs, psychological well-being. They should also go over physical recovery needs with their OBGYN, review mental and emotional needs with their OBGYN. They should also discuss current health needs, including nutrition and chronic condition management and sexual health needs. But how often does that happen? Right? Here's what really happens. You leave the hospital quickly. I mean, most people don't want to stay in the hospital if they don't have to. But with very limited, no matter how long you're staying in there, it's very limited information on how to care for your body and what warning signs require any type of call to your OB, to your midwife. Then once you get home, you're probably not going to speak to a doctor until your 6-week checkup. And that's going to look like, what's your weight check, your blood pressure, postpartum depression screening, pelvic exam, and then talk about birth control. They're rushed and they're mainly focused on like some of that latter part, like a birth control discussion. So you don't actually receive any guidance on postpartum recovery, your physical needs, or any type of mental needs. So that is why I am doing this webinar, because we are going to be talking about those things. That is why, if you know, as a mama, and I've come to your home in the first 2 weeks, because I said, I am not going to be a part of that. Like, nobody comes to see you or talks to you about any of that stuff within 6 weeks of having a baby. It blew my mind, because in this book, it also talks about, like, in other countries all over the world, from India to Korea, Turkey to Brazil, like, they have rituals, they have practices in place that support you as a mama, your relationships, the community around you during this postpartum time. So postpartum healing, this is not like new knowledge. It's just been forgotten. And what we think is a necessity, we see it as a luxury. And we have got to stop thinking like that. So after I read that book, I went and did what was called a birth fit professional class. So it talks about all kinds, and I'm going to share some of that stuff today. I became part of the ICPA, which is the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association, but it's also prenatal and postpartum and what that looks like and how to care for our mamas and their babies afterwards. But reading this book, if you do not have this book, I would absolutely recommend that you get it. It is a complete guide to doing all of those things that are there. So let's first talk about, like, what is this fourth trimester? It is the 3 months after your baby is born. It's also known as a lying in phase. And so if you didn't know this, but 100 years ago in the United States, there was this practice of what was called lying in. And all that it meant was simply supporting women as they rested in the months following birth. And it used to be practiced. But the fourth trimester is also a time where you're connecting, where you're resting, you're restoring, you're balancing, you're healing. What it isn't, it is not get your body back as fast as you can. It is not get back into the routine of life and how fast can you do it. It's not get back into your pre-pregnancy genes. Fourth trimester is a big deal. And so this is why talking about what you need postpartum, like needing a care plan. And why would this be so important? I believe that all mothers deserve so much more than what you are given by our traditional medical system. And support is important. And it's not only important for your baby, like rightfully so. Like, you think about, you have a baby and then everything's like hyper vigilant on baby, how they doing, their well-being, are they okay? And like, right, like that's totally fine. That is great. But we also need to do the same thing for moms. Any marathon runner knows that that race that they do is super, super important. But they also know that just as important is the recovery. And so childbirth, you guys, it is a marathon. Those of you that have been through it, that have just gone through it, are about to go through it, you're going to realize that it is just like a marathon. But this postpartum period is when you heal. This is when you recover. And I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to need a lot more help than you think that you need. And when you're creating this plan, if your husband isn't there with you or your other half, I would encourage you to maybe say, hey, come on over and watch the rest of this webinar with me, or rewatch it with them. But I do recommend that you do this with each other, creating this plan and walking through what this is going to look like postpartum into this 4th trimester. Now, I am going to talk to you about awareness, just first and foremost, in your 4th trimester. And I'm not telling you this as out of fear. I am telling you this more to empower you to know that there's things that can happen in the 4th trimester that you just want to be aware of. And the more that you're aware of these things, the better that you can take care of yourself. So the first one, or the first two, even in the third one, they can be serious. And they can be very concerning, but I want you to be aware of these things. So there's things called postpartum preeclampsia. And so some of you know preeclampsia is something that happens more when you're pregnant and you're going into to be able to deliver, and things happen and things are different and things change. But if you don't know, but it's possible to develop postpartum preeclampsia. Now it's rare, but it can be where you develop high blood pressure and you have protein in your urine after childbirth. So things like headaches, severe swelling, blurred vision, those can be warning signs of preeclampsia. You've got postpartum hemorrhaging. So it is totally normal to bleed after childbirth, but losing more than 1,000 milliliters of blood during the first 24 hours can be a sign of a postpartum hemorrhage. Blood clots larger than a golf ball, or severe bleeding where you're like filling up a pad within an hour of changing it, and then it's full again, can be a sign of hemorrhaging. Heart conditions and cardiovascular. So postpartum cardiomyopathy, which means that your heart isn't pumping strong enough, can occur up to 5 months after childbirth. Blood clots. The risk of serious blood clots, like in your leg, it can extend 3 months after childbirth. And then the other things, pelvic pain caused by pelvic organ prolapse. And so what this refers to, if you're not aware of what it means, it's when your like uterus, your bladder, part of your bowels, they can start to slip out of their normal position and they can slide down towards your vagina. And this can affect your ability to like go to the bathroom comfortably, but also can contribute to back pain and incontinence. Diastasis recti. This is where you have separation of your abdominal muscles, like right in the middle section. Now, this is naturally going to happen like when you are pregnant, like they are going to separate, but they should return back to normal. Diastasis recti is when they don't, where there's a gap in between. So anything that measures 2.7 centimeters is considered diastasis recti. Now, this can also cause like a mom pooch, having diastasis recti. But this also can contribute to incontinence. Now, C-section recovery, there can be issues like infection. It can lead to sepsis, but there can be pain. There can be delayed healing with that. Postpartum depression. Most people can kind of like get what that is, But usually that's because there's a shifting in your hormone levels. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But this is where you're just feeling sadness, like you're feeling anger. It might be hard for you to concentrate. And even you have no interest in anything that you normally would have before. And then there's postpartum anxiety. They've done studies that more women have postpartum anxiety. 17% of postpartum women will have some sort of a postpartum anxiety. So this is where you have like almost like this intense worry as well, like anxious thoughts afterwards. So what can you do with this knowledge that I just gave you? I'm going to tell you it's to empower you, that if you are feeling these things or having these things, it's not just like, let's just say that they're normal and it's totally fine. Or like my mom had it, so then I have it. And like, there's this and there's that. Oh yeah, just everybody has those kinds of things. Like, no, I want to empower you to be able to take care of yourself and have an awareness of what could be going on in your body. And I'm telling you this is because the care that you're receiving is subpar. And I wish that you didn't have to advocate for yourself, but you have to advocate for yourself. So we're going to continue on now. If you're a pregnant mama that's watching this and you are like, I just want to be prepared. I want you to be able to create your own postpartum plan. Now, I have created what's called your postpartum recovery checklist. I'm going to put the link right here into the chat so that you can have it. You can download it. You can have the resources on here. It is a continued list that continues to grow and grow and grow. And this is the point where those of you that are already mamas and you created a plan and there's things that you loved that you had afterwards that was just a game changer for you. You can put those in the comments. But one of the things is stocking up on the essentials. So especially for a first-time mom, a lot of this can be overwhelming because you're like, I don't know what I need. But we want to make sure as a community and as a group that we support you. So stock up on the essentials. A lot of the hospitals and birthing centers, they will send you home with a lot of the basics, but that might not be enough. So before your due date, consider stocking up a whole bunch of things. You have a list that's right there. Talk to other moms, ask them what they did. Rest. The reason I put rest. Like when you're creating a postpartum plan, that needs to be included in there. We live in this go society, but after you have a baby, you have to rest. Your body needs a lot of it. Like most moms, like your first 30 to 40 days need to be rest and some TLC. So you have to plan for rest. It gives your body time to heal, your mind time to heal. And this allows you so much time to focus on just you and the baby and your family that's growing. And some of you, if you're able to, that rest, a postpartum doula could be something that you consider. Also, like, what does it look like for friends and family members coming so that you can rest? Making sure that you plan what that is going to look like. Advocate for yourself. This is what I'm talking about when I was talking about the awareness. You don't have to wait until 6 weeks postpartum to see your healthcare provider. Advocate for yourself. If you suspect any type of issues during that postpartum period, don't be afraid to mention that you need, like even those guidelines that I was telling you about, like that was ACOG guidelines, like you can look them up and like use that as this is like reinforcement. Like you guys have done this. Like I want this type of care. Try Zuo-UAZ. Right before this, I was like, how do you say that? And I put it into Google and there's like Zuo-UAZ. I've known what it is for years. I was just like, I don't really actually know how you say that. But in the Asian culture, most postpartum moms adopt this practice of Zuo-UAZ. It does translate to the word confinement, which nobody loves, but it refers to this first 40 days after childbirth in which you like, what you do as a mama is you basically keep yourself at home. This confinement period, it's where you are just settling into your home. You are staying cozy. You are resting. You are eating warm foods. We're going to get into more detail of what this means. But the majority of your time for that first 40 days is nursing, it's bonding, it's resting, focusing on a nourishing food. We are absolutely going to go through that. And the only thing I want to say right here is I know it can be, you can get anxious about losing the baby weight, but it's not time to do that. And so letting your food nourish you is what you want to do during this fourth trimester. And we'll talk about get help. I just want that to be on your plan, that if you need help, that there would be no shame in asking for help. It takes a village to recover from childbirth, and there is absolutely no shame. It might look like hiring a doula. Okay. It might be like asking friends or family members to make meals for you. Ask friends to help with like specific tasks. Like maybe you need some more pads, like maybe you need some more diapers, like ask them to come hold your baby while you take care of yourself. Like you take a shower, you just take a nap, like you do a sitz bath, like ask your friends to sit with you, ask them to chat with you, ask if they'll drive you to any of your appointments. Maybe you hire a cleaning service or ask somebody, like if they're like, can I help you with anything? You could be like, could you clean something? Could you donate to a cleaning service for your house so you don't have to worry about any of that? Ask help from your OB, like from your midwife, from your chiropractor. Asking for help is probably one of the bravest things that you can do. And sometimes it's the only way to find the time and the energy to truly take care of yourself. So let's continue on. I want to talk about some things that can happen after you give birth that a lot of people don't really talk about. It can be an adjustment for you, not only just baby of what happens in your body faces a lot of surprising changes after you give birth. And you just want to know these things. So thinking about all that happened like during pregnancy, like you survived morning sickness, maybe you had some insomnia, but your body isn't done changing after all of that happens. So after you give birth, a lot of things can happen. So let's talk about, you deliver the placenta. Some people don't even realize that they deliver a placenta. So after the baby comes out, you might still feel contractions and you still need to deliver the placenta and you might need to push, or it might just literally slide on out. But there's a whole other stage that happens after the delivery of your baby, and that's where you labor out your placenta. And so if you have a vaginal birth, it's usually about 20 minutes after the baby is born, give or take some. Everybody is a little bit different, but it's important that it's all expelled out into its entirety, because we don't want to leave anything in because it can cause infection. So they're watching for all of that. If you have a C-section though, the doctor will take the placenta out of your uterus before closing this up. Now, we're going to talk about the placenta here in a little bit of what you can do with that, because you can also do things with that help you postpartum, especially in this fourth trimester. But let's talk about shaking, sweats, and chills. This can happen right before you're about to deliver, but it can also happen at the end. So as your hormone levels begin to drop, specifically estrogen, you might feel shaky and sweaty. And there also might be chills that happen afterwards. All of these are absolutely normal. It's because of hormones dropping. And that's okay, but it can happen. So sometimes it can freak you out afterwards, right? Swelling and vaginal pain. So pushing and a baby out, letting a baby out, like your perineum, which is the space between your vagina and your anus, like right in that middle section, it gets stretched, like it may have torn. And so all of that, like one of the best things to do for this healing process is making like padsicles and doing a sitz bath. Those are absolutely so good for healing of the vaginal area. This next one, it's a fancy way of talking about bleeding after giving birth. So you will have the longest period of your life, and that's postpartum bleeding, and that's totally normal. Your uterus sheds any of the extra that grew so it could support your placenta. So all of that is completely normal for you to have. Now, part of the plan is to have special underwear or special pads. You want to keep them as organic as possible. That's in part of the checklist. But having some of that, and you might even have like an adult diaper, and those are totally fine. They are absolutely okay. It's not sexy, but it will absolutely do the job. Constipation and leaking can happen afterwards. When you poop the very first time after having a baby, it's a whole new situation as a new mom, right? You, like, your entire body has changed a little bit. You underwent some intense activity down in that area. And so it's just takes a little bit of time for your body to begin to heal. So it's going to slow down. So you might feel a little bit constipated. And there might even be like, especially after you've like torn, there can be just a hesitancy, and your body also knows that there could be a fear of pain. There could be a fear of tearing even more. All of that is normal, but it's a really good idea to stay ahead of any type of constipation. So doing things like magnesium, doing dried fruits like prunes, those can, like, doing those ahead of time can help, so it can ease any type of constipation. Sometimes you might even have the opposite, and you might have diarrhea and leaking like gas and poop and farting and that kind of thing that we'll talk about here in just a minute. But some of those things do happen. But if you have loose stool, having things like bananas and rice and apples and tea can help bring everything back to where it needs to be. Incontinence. If pooping isn't necessarily an issue, sometimes peeing can become one, and that has more to do with pelvic floor muscles and nerves and ligaments. They all work together to keep you from leaking any urine. But during labor, they get strained and they get stretched. And after you give birth, and like you might sneeze or laugh, and there might be some leaking. But here's the thing, that's not normal. Incontinence after birth is not normal. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. Farting. You might have a gassy baby, and you might have a gassy mommy at the end of it. So, but get ready to fart a lot. A lot of things happen, like your intestines shifted, like you can have a buildup of gas because they've been shifted for your whole entire pregnancy, and now things are coming out. So it's totally normal to have farting afterwards. There's most likely nothing wrong with you, but you might want to like do some things differently with your nutrition, like maybe not eating gassy foods, but that you want all of that air to come out. Hemorrhoids. So hemorrhoids, swollen veins in your anus and in your rectum, they might itch, they might be painful, and sometimes they can cause blood to be in your stool. And so typically they'll shrink and go away after you give birth, but being prepared, having things like witch hazel pads are great for natural relief for hemorrhoids. Easing constipation can also help. So making sure that pooping becomes a lot easier. So things like your magnesium, prunes, and those kinds of things to help your body. Breastfeeding struggles. Breastfeeding, you guys, as wonderful as it is, it can also be a really big source of stress for new moms, because you wonder if you're doing it right, or if the baby is getting enough milk. And it can really hurt, like, until your nipples like toughen up or they get a good latch. Like, it can be really, really hard. If you're struggling with it, you can try different positions. I love the Thompson method of breastfeeding, and they have so many YouTube videos on it. But get support with this. Like, and on the checklist, there's nipple cream, there's nipple shields. But in the meantime, like, don't give up. Like, get help when it comes to this. Get a lactation consultant, join a mom's group, talk to another mom of what she did. You'll be surprised. There's a lot more moms that struggle with breastfeeding than you realize, even if it looks like they're perfect. Like, it's not. They probably worked really hard to get to that place where they are at. Baby blues. Now, listen, I'm not talking about postpartum depression. This is more of like a subtle change that you might experience after giving birth. This is like crying at the drop of a hat, some mood swings, maybe some inability to sleep. These are all because of this just massive, intense hormonal change that happens with your brain. You should start to feel a bit better after about a week or two. But if that closes and they haven't subsided, seeking out some help with that will absolutely, and we'll talk about that in just a minute of like supporting, not in just a minute, it's at the very end of like supporting hormonal things. And hair loss. Hair loss is something surprising that can happen after you give birth. And the reason is also due to hormone changes. So when you have a whole lot of estrogen while you're pregnant, and then when you have a baby, it just goes all the way down. And when that happens, your hair can fall out when that estrogen just like plummets down, but don't panic. Okay. You're not going to go bald. But it might take a few months, for the hair loss to stop. There is an ebook. It's called Hair Rescue ebook. And if you're like, oh gosh, there's some best practices and things to do with that as well. Amanda says the witch hazel pads are absolutely everything. So here's the biggest thing. Be gentle with yourself, fourth trimester. You are healing. Take care of yourself. Ask for help and take it slow. Your to-do list of what needs to get done can absolutely wait. What needs to be cleaned, all of that, it can wait. Your body worked really hard to grow this perfect human that you gave birth to. So it only makes sense that you need to let your body be able to recover. Recovery. So that's what we're going to talk about now. Let's talk about physical healing. First thing is gentle chiropractic care. There's a whole purpose and reason for this, but your nervous system is the control center of your entire body. It's managing everything, like from your mood to your energy levels to how you respond to stress. And so after you give birth, your nervous system goes through a lot. And being able to balance it and keep it at ease, because your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic is fight or flight. So this is the part of your nervous system that is your body's like alarm system. So it kicks in when you feel stressed, when you feel anxious, when you feel overwhelmed. Your heart rate will increase. You feel on edge. It's hard to sleep. Versus your parasympathetic, this is your rest and digest. So this is like the calm side of your nervous system. This is where you feel relaxed. It helps you digest. It allows your body to heal. It allows your body to recover. It's activated when you do things like deep breathing, gentle movement, when you're resting. So why does this matter so much postpartum? Because after birth, your body can easily get stuck in that fight or flight mode, especially because of the stress of caring for a newborn. And if you have babies that like, you have like 3 kids, 2 kids, another kid, 4 kids, 5 kids, and then you have a newborn and you're trying to take care of it, but then you also have other kids that need your attention and you're trying to do all of it. Hormonal shifts can get you stuck in a sympathetic nervous system. Lack of sleep gets you stuck in a sympathetic nervous system. So when you're constantly in fight or flight, that can lead to just anxious and irritability. It can lead to trouble sleeping, like even when the baby's sleeping. So if you're having a hard time relaxing or feeling like yourself, gentle chiropractic care can absolutely help. And those of you that have been adjusted by Myself, usually after you have a baby, it is very gentle. Like I am not trying to do the things that we do beforehand. And it really does help to get your body out of that sympathetic nervous system. Massage afterwards is really, really beneficial. Now, not deep tissue massage, not like Thai massages, like not the aggressive kind, okay? Your body is changing so rapidly. You want massages that help with circulation, help with your lymphatic drainage, flushing out the toxins that can help settle your nervous system, help you sleep better. Like you want to feel absolutely replenished afterwards. So things that have like long, smooth strokes, circular motions that help you focus on relaxation, like that is what you want after in that 4th trimester postpartum. Pelvic floor and core therapy. I cannot stress this enough. Oh, actually, let me go back one thing. In Nashville, some of my favorite places for this is Carrie Jenkins with Womankind, and then also Soma Wellness. Like you don't want to just go to anybody. I would really you really want somebody that knows how to do things postpartum. Okay, so pelvic floor and core therapy. Restoring your core and your pelvic floor is absolutely important. Things like a weak core, pelvic floor, diastasis recti, feeling like your organs are falling out of your body, like lower back pain, postural imbalances, a pelvic floor. I recommend first, like, if you're pregnant, like go to a pelvic floor therapist like before postpartum. That way they can assess where you were before and then assess where you were afterwards. But if that wasn't the case, I would still, no matter how far you are postpartum, get into a pelvic floor therapist so that they can assess and see what needs to be done specifically for you. My favorite here in Nashville is Plus One. They are absolutely incredible and amazing. I know that there's a lot of things that you can also get online, but there's nothing like, and they also do assessments online as well. So you don't have to like go into someone, but get some help with that. Get assessed immediately for 4th trimester. Now, birth fit. This is where birth fit comes into play that I was talking about, and it's called functional progressions. And this is where you really start to like do some movement and some getting and restoration back into it. It is a form of like pelvic and core therapy, but these are safe. They're effective for actual true core recovery. We're going to go through a couple, but I have made on our YouTube page a playlist of all of them, but I want to show you and walk you through what this looks like. Because the very first thing, 4th trimester, that you want to start doing is getting back into breathing. And this is diaphragmatic breathing. And so when we're going through these functional progressions that I'm going to walk through a couple with you, and then there's 4 of them, you need time each day to practice these movements, and you never arrive. So whether you are 1 month postpartum, 1 week postpartum, or you are 18 years postpartum, you never arrive at like getting these things perfectly. There's always room for improvement, and you can assess where you're at by doing each one of these functional progressions, no matter where you are at postpartum. So the objective of this right here, diaphragmatic breathing, what you're going to do, let me just double check. Okay. You're stabilizing and allowing your, I don't know if I'm going to come back and make sure that you can see like this aspect of it. So breathing out into your core, it's bracing by breathing out, breathing in, thinking of it as if like somebody like punched you and you brace out, like it's a whole 360 diaphragmatic breathing. On YouTube, there is this right here, and I don't have the video up on there. I want you to just go to Major Family Chiropractic on YouTube, go to playlist, and you'll see the functional progressions, and you're going to walk through this. But this is the very first one. You fully exhale, breathing through your nose, fill your belly up with air. Think 360 degrees all the way around your low back, your low ribs. Exhale through your mouth, and your ribs are expanding out. They're not expanding up when you're breathing in, they're expanding out. Think 360. This is the first place to start. And then we're going to go into functional progression 1, which is known as the dead bug. So this is where your sagittal plane, so like the side planes like this, you want to help to recreate all of that back into your entire core. And so you are on your back, your spine is connected to the ground. You are doing one arm up, one arm down, opposite, maintaining your breath, breathing, maintaining your core out, 360, having a neutral spine, extending them out. And you go as far as you can. And you might only use your arm, one arm, and not use your feet. And then you eventually do that, but you want to keep everything stabilized, and you modify. You go as far as you can before things come off the ground, come back, and you help to connect everything back to where you want it to be. The whole purpose of this is slow is fast. This isn't trying to rep it out. This isn't like how fast can I do 10 reps? It is slow is fast. Then there's transition. So there's 4 functional progression movements and diaphragmatic breathing. So there's kind of 5. But there's transitions in the in-between to help your body to then go back into those functional movements, help reconnect your core back to the rest of your body. So this one is known as rolling. So you can see how she went from that dead bug and then slowly starts to turn to the side. And then that will get us into the next progression, which is side lying planks. But you'll see you want to maintain your breath. You're supporting your oblique muscles. You're supporting your whole entire core. Remember, slow is fast. And some of you might need to modify. And I've put in modifications of videos of what that looks like. So here's all of them. If you want to take a screenshot or take a picture of this, I would. Each one of those, you go one by one by one by one. Once you have gotten the functional progression 1, then you move to functional progression 2. You've got to get the first one down before you go into the second one, and it's progression. So you start with the top and then you move to the bottom. So go to our YouTube page, go to playlists, and you'll see functional progression, and you're going to have all of the videos there to begin this process of restoring your core back to where it needs to be. Now, also, if you are like, I need like a little bit more help with that, go straight to birthfit.com. They have assessments. They have all kinds of things that you can do when it comes to restoring your core and getting a lot of physical healing back into your body. Now, let's talk about nutrition. My second favorite book is called The First 40 Days. These are the 2 books that I would get, no matter where you're at postpartum. But The First 40 Days, it talks about nourishing your food, like nourishing your body through food. And I'm not going to get into super specifics today, but I'm going to tell you, like, nutrition is usually the very first thing that gets sacrificed. Like when time and energy and resources are lacking. Yet I will tell you, the demands of postpartum require you to stay well fed. Like, you have to refuel after this massive effort of birthing a baby while simultaneously doing something absolutely extraordinary. Like those of you that are breastfeeding, like creating the sustenance for a baby with your own body. It's absolutely incredible, but it requires energy, especially in the form of food. A woman's blood volume almost doubles during pregnancy to support your baby. After birth, the loss of all of this blood, warm, like circulating blood, combined with like opening up and allowing a baby to come out, whether it was C-section or vaginal, that heat has to be recaptured. Like it has to come back. It has to be optimized for healing because of how much has been lost. So gentle guidelines, gentle. When you're thinking about food, you're thinking warm food, not cold food. Nix the cold. You're thinking soft and easily digestible foods. You love your healthy fats. You want lots and lots and lots of healthy fats. Think simple food, simple food. Think consistent eating. And observe how the food might affect your baby, and very gently figure out to see, is anything affecting my baby that I'm eating? Drink up, lots and lots of water. Stay hydrated. Let people cook for you. Okay? But you get to decide. You don't just be cook for me whatever you want. Meal trains are really great, but you can create the guidelines. You can say what it is that you would like for them to do. Dieting right now might be something that you do later, but for this first part, it is a no. Okay? So let's talk about some prep. Let's say you are pregnant and you want to just prep your pantry. Somebody wants to help you do all of that, whatever. You have a baby shower. You could do weird things like this. You could be stock my pantry shower. Do something like that. You want to stock your pantry with all of these foods, all of them right here. So screenshot this, or you can also just buy this book and it has all of that stuff inside of there. But you're going to see a lot of it is warming foods, healing foods, gentle foods. And if you're I don't do well with that, then you don't have to eat it. It's very much when you're stocking up, what you like of this too. It doesn't have to be, you have to have these things or suck it down, none of that stuff. But this isn't a stock your pantry for bread and milk for a winter storm like they do here in Nashville. And a lot of it you might already have, but these are some of the best things. And then if you can prep ahead of time, fill your freezer up, cook and freeze meals ahead of time. You're looking more broths and soups. The more that you can do that, the better. The more that people can help you do that, the better. In that nesting phase, you're gathering things up, fill your freezer up with great, healthy, good foods for your body. So let's talk about healing nutrition, especially fourth trimester. Soups, stews, broths, congee and porridge. That's rice. In Asian culture, it's called congee. Smoothies, bowls, one-pot meals, leftovers, sweets and snacks and hot drinks. All of that is inside of here, from recipes to general things. It is not a rigid dietary program fourth trimester. Okay? You are thinking templates of all of this, basic ideas that can be easily made and adapted to you, depending on what you have on hand in your kitchen or what you like to eat. This is about sustenance, not some gourmet cuisine, even though that looks really great and nice. You want it to maybe be eaten over several days, and that way it doesn't require a whole lot of tending. You're not having to cook a whole lot. And even prep for it should be very minimal. You can enhance, you can modify it, whatever appeals to you in that moment. You are just creating a guideline. And then once you become really familiar with the basic concepts of what this is, you get the flow of everything, and you might not even measure stuff after that. But this is where I want you to be thinking, especially the first 40 days after having a baby. Now, let's talk about the placenta. Okay. I went straight for it. I was eating your placenta. No. So there's a lot of different ways that you can, but I want to talk about it because there is a lot of nutrition inside of your placenta. This is nothing new in the animal world. In China, mothers eat their placenta, and they've been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. The whole reason that you do this is it helps you regain your energy, your stamina, and it can boost your milk supply. There's also some science too when it comes to eating your placenta, because it contains oxytocin. So oxytocin helps you reduce pain, and it also helps to increase bonding with your baby. It also contains thyroid stimulating hormones, interferon and prolactin, which can also boost up your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your milk supply. Now, most mammals absolutely do this. And so there's a couple different things that you can do. It also helps with like postpartum depression, even some of those baby blues, because of all that it has inside of it. You can encapsulate it. In Nashville, there's great places here in Nashville. Katie, she's with Nashville doula Katie. We've used her in the past and she's really great. And also Tennessee placenta services, but you can get it encapsulated. The only hard part about that is that they consider your placenta as another organ. So you cannot bring it up to your room with you after recovery if you're in the hospital. So somebody has to take your placenta. I've had a lot of placentas in my refrigerator over the years because I've helped the whole process, and then it's delivered, it's frozen, and they take it, they encapsulate it, they dry it, they put it into pills, and then you can take those postpartum. Inside of the first 40 days, they have some placenta smoothie recipes. I know that might be a little bit intense and some of you are about ready to like vomit right now, but you can't taste it in there, and there's ways that you can make it. There's also people that eat it raw. And you can cut it up, you can freeze it, you can take it that way, but there's a lot of different ways. But I would consider doing something, with your placenta afterwards instead of just like throwing it away. But of course, that is absolutely up to you. So those are like mainly like nutrition things. Like I'm not going to keep it like rigid. It's not supposed to be rigid. Now we talked about physical healing. Let's talk about emotional healing. Be kind. Use kind words towards yourself and your body. Practicing gratitude. Gratitude for what your body just did. It made a human being, delivered a human being, however it was delivered. Some emotional healing can be sharing what you're feeling. I don't know why there's such a stigma. I understand why, because it's not even just in postpartum, it's like just life. It's like you're supposed to pretend that everything's okay in your life and not talk about things. And my goodness, that can be further from the truth when it comes to especially postpartum. And listen, like I don't know who you want to share it with. Like being part of a mom group is great. I also know that like sharing things with your husband, like it's not always like the easiest. Like you don't want to tell your husband that it feels like your bladder is falling out of your vagina, and like you don't want them to know those things, like, and knowing that this aspect is so tender. Like I'm not going to take any of this lightly when it comes to this, but like sometimes we can like unconsciously and consciously like avoid like intimacy and connection with people because of how we feel, because we don't really have language to put to like what's happening inside of our bodies, except for like, unfortunately, like husbands don't maybe understand what we're trying to say, and it makes us feel like we're damaged or like we don't have it all together and like we're crazy. But being able to have a space where you can share what you're feeling, and that might look like writing it out. It might look like painting it out. It might look like recording it, talking it out. It might look like drawing it. It might look like making a collage of your birth story, like unfiltered, and how you saw it and how you see it. And I'm gonna. There's an asterisk there because I'm gonna say one thing and then we'll move into why there's an asterisk. Research shows that the most effective decrease in postpartum anxiety and depression symptoms, they came when women wrote out their unfiltered story within 48 hours of birth. However, there's no limit or time limit on making meaning out of one of the most powerful and significant experiences of your life. Wherever you are in your postpartum process, you might want to take the opportunity to write the story and you're writing it without making any meaning of it. You write it from your heart, like it is your story. Now, the reason that there's an asterisk there is because I'm very sensitive to what it means for birth trauma. It is more frequent than we realize. And I know that trauma can be sometimes a loaded word, but when we're talking about fourth trimester stuff, there can be birth trauma from a physical injury. Maybe it's from a C-section, like maybe it is, and that's not what you wanted, and that's not what you thought it was, and that can be traumatic. Or maybe there was tearing, more tearing than you wanted there to be. Maybe your baby was vacuumed out. Maybe they were forceps out. Maybe there was just like something that happened. And I'm talking about like physical injuries with you and your body. 80% of women in the United States have some kind of a pelvic scar tissue after birth. 30% of women are delivering babies via C-section. And women who experience this birth trauma or birth injuries are more likely to experience like PTSD after and have emotional trauma after delivering a baby and bringing what's supposed to be the most beautiful thing and all of that. But here's what's wild. 25 to 34% of women report that their birth was traumatic, even though the staff and their support team may not have perceived it that way. So something that is traumatic for one person may not be traumatic for another person. And the reason there's an asterisk there is because when you write out your birth story and you start to feel anxiety, you start to feel anxious, like then there is most likely trauma, and it's not like to continue to write through it is not the best idea for those moments. And you can stop and maybe revisit it. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just might not be the right time. But when we only think of like a major catastrophic event or death or an accident as trauma, it's like the smaller, like they're very significant, like smaller but significant undigested pieces of your birth story. If they're left untreated or dismissed altogether, it can get real not good. You can start to blame yourself for the inability to just move on from it, or feeling satisfied about the birth that everyone else thinks like went fantastic. So writing your story might not be the best. It can actually do more harm than good. And so there are like, but you can heal from this. Birth Story Medicine, Pam England, she is absolutely great. It's an approach to moms so that you can process and heal through your birth experience, whether it was joyful or challenging, but it provides like a safe place for you to be able to reflect, for you to tell, for you to find new meaning in it, and find some emotional healing and some personal growth. And just getting help from someone that's trained on this is also a really good idea. So some of this emotional healing that's here can be coming from your hormones. And so what exactly is happening to your hormones like after you deliver? It goes through pretty significant hormonal changes. You can see the chart right there. Pregnancy, estrogen and progesterone are really, really high. You have a baby, bam, they plummet. And when estrogen and progesterone drop after that delivery, when they plummet pretty rapidly, and this is why you can feel some of that baby blues, and like you can feel sad, like you can feel anxious, you can get these mood swings because that literally went down to the ground. What also happens is oxytocin rises, but you can see, and then it falls, and then it rises, and then it falls, and it goes up, and then it goes down. When you're breastfeeding, oxytocin is at its highest, but this is known as your love hormone. And this increases, and it helps because it helps your uterus contract. That's why a lot of you had a little bit of Pitocin after you gave birth. They put a little Pitocin in your IV for a minute, and that was it's the fake version of oxytocin. But it reduces postpartum bleeding and it promotes bonding with your baby. So skin to skin contact and breastfeeding boosts up your oxytocin levels. It helps you feel connected, and it also helps you feel calm. Prolactin takes over. So prolactin is responsible for your milk production. So lactation, milk production, prolactin. So high levels of prolactin can cause that sense of like mama bear protectiveness. But it also can contribute to like fatigue and low libido when your prolactin levels are high. Your thyroid can fluctuate, and some mamas, you experience a pretty big thyroid imbalance postpartum. And that can cause things like hypothyroidism, which would be like fatigue, weight gain, depression, or hyperthyroid, anxiety, weight loss, restlessness. Sometimes it has a diagnosis of postpartum thyroiditis. So your thyroid can completely fluctuate. And then cortisol and adrenaline can increase and then become depleted. So childbirth and the demands of caring for a newborn, it can increase cortisol, which is the stress hormone, but that prolonged stress then can create overwhelm, anxiousness, exhaustion, and your adrenals also can become depleted because of the stress and the sleepless nights, and all of that can lead to adrenal fatigue, low energy, mood swings. So how do we support all of this? I know the first one is like, but like I have a newborn and like resting and sleeping. Listen, I know. And I'm not asking you to do things that are like crazy, but I'm also telling you that you need to rest and you need to recover. You have to allow your body to recover. It's easier said than done. I absolutely know that, but it is important. More important than your to-do list. Nourishing foods. We talked about it. Healthy fats, proteins, those warm foods. That will help your hormones so much. Breastfeeding and bonding. That encourages that oxytocin production. So as much as you're able to do that, if you're not able to breastfeed, it's okay. Bond, skin to skin contact, like all the time, as much as you possibly can, will help the oxytocin start to replenish and get like ups and where it needs to be. Mindfulness and relaxation. This helps regulate your cortisol level, supports your adrenal health. That's why I love these like Milk Moon supplements. They're really, really good at like having ashwagandha, the Bring Me a Dream one. I've taken this one and I've never been postpartum. And it's really, really good because it has passion flower. It has California poppy inside of it. It has ashwagandha in it. And so chamomile, helping your body to just calm and recover. Chiropractic care and gentle movement. We talked about that, aiding in your nervous system balance, supporting your hormone regulation. And then this last one, ask for blood work at your 6-week checkup, like no matter what. Because often when things are happening, they'll prescribe you birth control pills or antidepressants. It's a blanket prescription of like what they're going to prescribe you postpartum. And that will leave usually the underlying cause, which is your hormones not being regulated, and it will leave it all untreated. And then you keep going, and then eventually it ends up being a bigger issue and a problem down the road. But this can be avoided by just simply asking your doctor for blood work at your doctor's visit. Now, if you need some help reading it, talk to me. I'll absolutely help you be able to walk through what that looks like. And the last thing before we're done here is I want to talk about Whitney. She texted me this morning and I said, Whitney, can I use this as an example? So she came to us in 2022 and she had a 2-month-old when she started getting care in our office and started getting adjusted. And we've talked about postpartum when she had Jackson, and then recently having Lincoln a year and a couple months ago, because she was getting adjusted, got pregnant right away again, and then is postpartum now. And she sent me this because and we've done blood work and we've done hormone testing and we've worked on nutrition, and she's worked so hard to take her health back and to really truly cover postpartum, take care of herself instead of what she did on her first pregnancy, where it was just like going through the motions and doing all of that and like doing the best that she could, but like didn't know a whole lot. But since coming here, she's been educated. We've gotten her on great supplements, her prenatals, like all of that, talked about supporting her body postpartum, and she was able to PR on her deadlift. So that's the one that she's pointing to in the green shirt. She PR'd her personal record is what it is, like a PR. Her back squat on Monday at 140, a bench press. And she said, it just feels so good to take back my health. And so I want that for all of you mamas out there, whether you are not quite postpartum because you're pregnant and watching this and preparing yourself, whether you're newly postpartum or you've had multiple babies and you're multiple postpartum, that when you take this, everything that I talked about to start with, and remember, I told you that there is way more that can be done and talked about, but taking that first step for you. I don't know what that looks like. We talked about getting gentle chiropractic care, like schedule. Maybe you need to schedule somewhere, into our office, like get a consultation with a chiropractor that can help you get out of your sympathetic nervous system into that rest and digest. Find areas where your nervous system isn't where it needs to be. Maybe you need to do some of the birth fit, those functional progressions that I was talking about, starting there. Maybe you need to sign up for a birth fit class. I don't know. Pelvic floor therapy. Maybe you've been talking about it and you just need to go and you just need to do it. Maybe you need to figure out your nutrition and get some good food and healthy, nourishing things into your body. For some of you, you're pregnant. You need to prep. You need to get on the prep game to make sure that you are ready and set for fourth trimester. Maybe you need to get these 2 books, maybe one book, maybe both of the books. Get these books, start reading them. What does it look like? Maybe you need to write your birth story. Maybe you need to talk to someone. Maybe the first step is you just need to reach out and get some help. I hope this was super helpful for you guys. I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. And so those of you that are still on, that have been on for this last hour, thank you. And if you're watching this afterwards, share this with somebody. Share this with your mamas. Let people know that they do not have to be part of a system that does not take care of you, that there are people out there that absolutely love you, that want to take care of you, and you can heal. So no matter where you are at, I absolutely love you, and we'll see you soon.